60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent. No, but it's not that. It's editing things to make deceptive editing.
Joe,
so in deceptive editing, you give people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality.
But you got to explain.
But that's not objective journalism.
I know, but
that's campaigning for that.
Joe Rogan just went head-to-head with Bernie Sanders on Rogan's own podcast, and it didn't go the way many expected. Bernie showed up calm and comfortable, clearly anticipating a friendly, low-pressure conversation. That comfort didn't last. Rogan pushed back, asked direct questions, and challenged Bernie's familiar talking points in real time. It was a reminder of why this podcast has become a place where narratives are tested, not protected. No matter where you stand politically, this exchange brought serious heat. So hit that like button, because we're breaking down what actually went down.
Musk, and I know Elon was on your show, and he's here in Austin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, and we could talk about Elon, but he spent $270 million to elect Trump as president. Okay. I think that's absurd that any one person...
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
They spent a lot of money on Harris as well.
They spent $1.5 billion just over the course of a couple of months.
You got it. All right, let me talk about it. So I'm not here just to say it's a Republican. That's my...
This is what happens when someone spends too long inside a political echo chamber. Bernie Sanders is used to interviews where his attacks on Trump and billionaires go unchallenged. He seemed to assume Rogan's show would be more of the same. It wasn't. When Bernie criticized Elon Musk for allegedly donating over $200 million to Trump's campaign, Rogan immediately fired back with a simple comparison. Vice President Kamala Harris raised around $1.5 billion in just a few months. That number changed the energy instantly. Bernie pivoted, dodged the comparison, and stepped around the contradiction like a seasoned politician under pressure. That's the Rogan difference. This isn't a comfort zone. It's where claims get tested, especially when the numbers don't back the story. Bernie expected soft questions. Rogan didn't oblige.
The other lawsuit with the conversation that they had with Kamala Harris, where they edited the answers that she had to make it look more precise.
60 Minutes, they were suing 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Is, to my mind, historically, been around for a very long time. You know, they're not infallible, but I think you look at most objective people will say 60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more
This is where things really got interesting. After Rogan boxed him in with pushback, Bernie tried to redirect the conversation. He shifted focus to Donald Trump, criticizing him for suing 60 Minutes over how Kamala Harris's interview was edited. Rogan shut that down calmly, but firmly. He pointed out that selective editing isn't just sloppy journalism. It crosses into deception. Bernie rushed to defend 60 Minutes, calling it a respected institution with a long history of serious reporting. Rogan didn't move an inch. He made it clear that credibility doesn't grant immunity. If media manipulation happens, it deserves scrutiny, regardless of politics. That pattern became obvious. When uncomfortable facts surface, deflection follows. But on this podcast, that move doesn't land. So Bernie reached for another tactic.
You're walking down a dangerous path. Suing media has the impact of intimidating media. All right, if somebody sues you, all right, let me finish, all right?
Okay.
Somebody sues you, why not you? You could be sued tomorrow, right? Because you are doing this, you're too sympathetic to this.
Right.
And Joe, you did that, and they have a big law firm behind you, you're going to have to spend zillions of dollars defending yourself. You know what? Next time you do an interview, you say, maybe I'm not going to go in that area. Right?
No, but it's not that. It's editing things to make deceptive editing.
Joe,
so in deceptive editing,
I don't
you
know,
give people a different perception of who this
I
candidate
understand
is than reality.
All right, but you
that's
gotta
not
explain.
But that's not objective journalism.
I know, but
that's campaigning for that person.
All right, but
would you agree?
Next came the emotional appeal. Bernie warned that attacking media behavior could eventually turn on Rogan himself. The message was subtle but clear. Question the press, and you'll be targeted. Rogan didn't flinch. He calmly explained that Bernie was blending two very different issues together. Being sued for honest, fair reporting isn't the same as being challenged for acting like a political mouthpiece. One threatens press freedom, the other is accountability. Bernie wasn't ready for that distinction. Rogan doesn't respond to guilt trips or emotional pressure. He doesn't back down when someone plays the moral card. And that's exactly why this interview went off script. Bernie came to lecture. Rogan came prepared to challenge.
I don't have those details. I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it. I don't know enough.
I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did.
Then you got to tell me why he is suing ABC. Why he's suing Meta.
Let's just talk about the 60 Minutes one first.
But it's not just.
We could go to ABC, but I'm not aware of that one.
Well,
either.
George Stephanopoulos said something that he didn't like. But the point is,
what did Stephanopoulos say?
I can't remember. It was I honestly don't remember. But
I think what he was saying was factually incorrect about the results of one of Trump's trials.
All right. Guess what? If I were to sue everybody who said things that were factually incorrect about me, I'd be suing people.
And this is the man positioning himself as a national leader, someone who struggles to give straight answers when the questions get uncomfortable. Bernie Sanders increasingly sounds less like a leader and more like a performer fixated on one opponent, Donald Trump. That obsession clouds his judgment and consistency. Instead of dealing with facts directly, he leans on outrage and emotional framing. Trump suing media outlets over what he claims is deceptive coverage isn't an attack on free speech. It's a response to alleged manipulation. There's a clear difference between verified reporting and narrative shaping, but when Trump is involved, Bernie's standards shift. Consistency vanishes. Fairness disappears. That isn't leadership. It's grievance politics, and it's a poor substitute for substance.
Concern is when you have media organizations that are purported to be objective and then they say things that are defamatory and factually incorrect, and they should know that before they say it. What other course does a person have other than a lawsuit? And isn't it important that you shine the light on what is a political bias?
Then where
from an organization that you would hope would be.
Joe Rogan did exactly what more interviewers should be doing. He held Bernie Sanders accountable without hostility or favoritism. No soft landings, no free passes. Every loose claim was questioned. Every shaky statement was examined. That's what real journalism looks like. Fair, firm, and independent. If more media operated this way, public trust might actually start to recover. And to be clear, this isn't about silencing the press. A free media is essential, but when outlets distort facts or push propaganda, consequences matter. Accountability isn't censorship, it's responsibility. Journalism without consequences turns into manipulation, and the public deserves better.
Fake news media is really hitting new lows, so eager to restart their debunked Russian conspiracy theories that they somehow managed to mix up this man, Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, with this dude, Vladimir Putin. Easy mistake to make if you've lost all reasoning, any semblance of objectivity when you are an activist journalist for MSNBC. Here are some of the corrections.
Last night, The Last Word reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network in which she said Trump was good friends with the world leader. Now, we said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview was subsequently released, and it showed that Gabbard was referring to Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
Real, fact-based journalism is supposed to prevent moments like this. Yet some outlets seem determined to ignore that responsibility. If certain networks had simply watched the full interview before reacting, they could have avoided embarrassing themselves. Instead, they rushed to push a familiar narrative, once again tying Trump to foreign interference without solid evidence. In the process, basic journalistic standards like verification and objectivity were tossed aside. What followed wasn't a small mistake. It was a textbook example of media malpractice, and it points to a larger problem. Too many outlets now act like activists with cameras, turning half-truths into headlines. Until that changes, these public walkbacks will keep happening, and each one will be louder than the last.
Tulsi Gabbard mentions that Trump is good friends with a world leader, and they not only just assumed she's talking about Vladimir Putin, but then they report that as if it were fact on television. That's what happened. Let's hear one more correction from MSNBC on that issue.
Last night, we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi.
And these are the same outlets Bernie Sanders rushed to defend. Media organizations so openly biased they barely bother hiding it anymore. Sanders brands himself as a champion of fairness and equality, yet those principles vanish when friendly media enters the picture. Where's the outrage over biased coverage? Where's the demand for neutrality? Silence. Bernie doesn't want independent media. He wants supportive media. That isn't a fight for truth. It's a fight for control. You can't preach fairness while excusing propaganda. You can't demand honesty while defending spin. If Bernie truly cared about integrity, he'd challenge biased media as aggressively as he challenges billionaires. He doesn't, and that contradiction says everything.
Worst vice presidential candidate we have seen, the uniquely awful Tim Walz, Tampon Tim. Remember him? He had all sorts of delusions of being vice president. Now he has delusions of being a presidential candidate, and he thinks he's a tough guy. Here he responds to media pundits who mocked his lack of masculinity.
How do you fight it?
This
I
notion
think
of
I could kick most of their ass. I do think if they wanted to. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
Good luck with that, Tim. I think Judge Janine has you.
Meanwhile, as Bernie struggled through Rogan's tough questions, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was making headlines of his own by challenging Republican men to physical confrontations. Yes, seriously. Apparently he thinks masculinity is proven through bravado instead of leadership. Flexing, posturing, and turning politics into performance art. But real strength isn't about fists or theatrics. It's about standing for truth when it's uncomfortable. It's about accountability and moral courage. Unfortunately, figures like Walz confuse showmanship with substance. Strip away the spectacle, and a pattern emerges. From Bernie stumbling under scrutiny to performative toughness elsewhere, cracks are starting to show. Americans are paying attention. We don't need emotional manipulation or biased narratives. We need honesty and leadership. And voices like Rogan's make it harder for pretenders to hide. That wraps up today's video.